Now let's get into the details of our story for this afternoon. Now the total amount of money that banks in Ghana fear might not be paid by borrowers has hit a little over 8 billion cedis. This revelation was contained in the latest Bank of Ghana report on development in the banking sector. There's more in the following report.
According to the Bank of Ghana, the stock of non-performing loans went up by almost 40% from 2016 to 8.5 billion cedis in December 2017. The report showed the loans extending to the public sector constituted about 3.2% of the stock of non-performing loans, with the private sector taking up the remaining 94.3%. This could mean that majority of the loans that are going bad went to the private firms instead of the public ones. However, some of these firms have told Joy Business that they took the loans to undertake government contracts and services. So if they have not been able to repay, it is because they have not been paid by government. The central bank in the report added that firms operating in the finance and commerce sector are the highest in terms of loans that will not be paid by one time, followed by the services and mining sectors. The challenge affected credit extension to the private businesses as it dropped significantly from the 2016 figure to 4%, meaning that most of the banks took steps to reduce rates of defaults.
All right, Energy Commercial Bank is working to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange to help meet new capital requirements, and that's according to the board chair of the Energy Bank, Jimo Ibrahim. According to him, even though the bank is not challenged with raising capital to meet the requirement, it has decided to offer an opportunity for Ghanaians to own a part of the company.
It shouldn't be a problem for Energy Commercial Bank because it's a member of a group of conglomerates whose the group assets about $2 billion. So that's a lot, it's huge. In other words, we have companies like Nikon Luxury Hotel, former Meridian, we have Nikon Insurance, we have Nigeria, we have Global Fleet Oil and Gas, so I don't see, if we say every subsidiary should buy the shares, it could capitalize in a few seconds. I think it's good for us to collaborate. So we're going to do IPO, and then to make Ghanaians to own the bank, I'm going to resign my appointment as a board. If we are going to IPO and people want to come in, then you cannot continue to be the chairman. So I'm going to drop out. Some of the board members are going to resign their appointment too, so that new people can come in, because of the share structure that will have changed. So if we are collaborating, we want to collaborate with other banks by merging business with them, and then we can even change them. I don't care. But if we have to do that, I have to resign also, so that it gives room for good discussions and all that. And I think I've done 7 years. It's quite enough for me to. We want general placement where a common person in Ghana can buy 1-2 shares, and then they can have a shareholders meeting, appoint a new chairman, and run the bank with professionals.
Let's touch on one of the headlines I gave you earlier, and it's on tax, because the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Emmanuel Kofi, has hinted that tax defaulters who do not take advantage of the tax amnesty would be prosecuted. The tax amnesty program, which was launched last year, was meant to encourage businesses to pay their taxes. Speaking with newsmen, Emmanuel wants that this will be the last amnesty and prosecution would follow soon.
We were minded by that. We wanted to be able to track to people being able to source income and how it's structured. We've been in communication with all those who do haulage in the country. We picked data on that. We picked data on all those who are suppliers, those within the distributive chain, distributors for the breweries. We have the details. We have the details for all the distributors for the Nestle, Liver Brothers, and the rest. And the issue for us is that we need to demonstrate to the Ghanaians that everybody who is able to access income above certain levels, we have the capacity to know them. And that's what we talked about. And that's what we are going to start doing. And whilst we are rolling out the processes and reaching the people, we are doing this tax amnesty for them to take advantage of the opportunity of the window that we have opened. But unfortunately for you, if we come after you and you heard me say it right, if we are having an interaction with you, tax amnesty does not apply to you. to take advantage and walk to our offices and start the interaction before we start to get to you. And so, I mean, it's a double-edged sort of thing that we are doing. We are going after the defaulters at the same time because now we have information that we are using. And once that, we want them to also come in. And the core issue is that we are about 70 people in the room now. If we open the door and 30 more people come in, we have 100 people. And so the core issue of the tax amnesty is to draw more people into the tax net. And that is what we want to do.
And to one of the controversial matters in the banking sector, the regulators of the financial sector say they would decide on planned transfer by ADB shares to new owners after it concludes investigations surrounding the deal. This is what Joy Business has picked up from persons close to the Bank of Ghana. There is more in the following news desk report.
According to these regulators, that's the Bank of Ghana and the Securities and Exchange Commission, they have not given any written approval that may allow Unibank to have controlling stake in ADB. Joy Business sources say that they also want to understand under what circumstances were ADB shares transferred to private equity Bellstar, which also is planning to transfer to Unibank. They also have wanted to establish whether the required approval was secured at every stage of these transactions. Joy Business understands that the action to give or not to approve this deal would only happen after they conclude the investigations.
Meanwhile, ADB is assuring the investing public and customers that the bank has not been taken over by any institution. This follows reports that Unibank could soon take over the bank after all the shareholders in ADB pledged their shares to Unibank. There's more in the following Business Desk report.
I should at this point respond to some of the news developing this morning, just to clarify that the Bank of Ghana has not given approval to the purported takeover or through the pledging of shares of the Agricultural Development Bank to Unibank. Corporate governance can be affected by the type of ownership, the quality of management, and its compliance with business rules and legal regulations. In order to reposition the financial sector to enhance the quality of capital to withstand volatilities and unexpected losses, and to strengthen corporate governance standards, we have this morning issued new guidelines on corporate governance for banking and specialized deposit institutions.
And so today is International Women's Day, and we are going to talk about women and what's important, salaries. Now, many women in Ghana and across the world today are still struggling to get the right level of salaries compared to their male counterparts in corporate settings. But as we celebrate International Women's Day today, we look at this whole gender pay gap problem and how it can be addressed locally. Chief Executive of Charterhouse, Teresa Ayode, believes that disclosing the salary structure at workplace may help.
It's worrying that that still exists, and I believe that that's why platforms like this exist, to address some of these issues and to have the conversations so that we draw attention to these issues. I think that a woman should definitely be paid her worth, just as a man is paid her worth. And at the end of the day, it is about who is able to deliver the results. And once a woman is able to deliver the results, and sometimes they're even able to deliver higher results, then there should be no question about how to reward them. The rewards should be commensurate with the results.
For you, how do we get around this whole equal pay for everyone, irrespective of your sex, that there are people who would want to do that? And this is not even the retail, these are well-established companies. Recently, Barclays Bank UK came out to confess, and it was documented that apparently they even pay their investment bankers far, far more than their female investment bankers. How do we get around this issue?
I think that it starts first of all from transparency. If there's no transparency in how much a certain level, if it's C level, if it's B level, A level, executives, if there's no transparency on how much this level should be earning, then it gives room for this kind of disparity. But if there's a transparency in terms of at this level, this is the range, or this is the rate of income, then once you get to that level, it should, come to you. But if there's no transparency and it's based on an individual negotiation basis, then there's room for that kind of bias if it's not a law in the organization structure and all of that. So I think that now that a lot of conversations are being held about it, I think that a lot of companies are going to begin to adopt transparency, so that how much people are paid is open and it's clear to everybody. So you know how much is due you. Because at the moment what happens is that most of the negotiations are done on an individual basis. So you may not know, you may walk out thinking you've struck a good deal, but you may not know what the other person struck. So I think that if those things are harmonized a bit, it would help the situation. And then women should also ask for more.
So I agree totally. It shouldn't be about gender. It should be about output, and it should be disclosed so we know what we are getting, and those are the same level, despite the group, the gender they belong to, should get what they actually deserve. So let's hear what the Managing Director of Barclays Bank Ghana, Patience Achianu, also has to say on this.
It's the highest anyway, and we must all be very concerned about it. And therefore, the central bank has actually enjoined all of us to put actions in place and share with them how we're going to bring it down. And to the extent that the interest rates will make repayment easier for our borrowing public, that should curb the problem, in my view.
Madam, finally on International Women's Day, for you, how do we break the glass ceiling and ensure that in the financial world where you've been tried and tested and risen through the ranks to the top, other females looking up to you, how do we get there in a banking space that is heavily male-dominated?
I think women need to take responsibility for their own progress, to see real traction and the momentum in the whole change process where gender parity is concerned. You've got to take full ownership. Nobody is responsible for your progress except yourself. And therefore, you've got to find out what it takes to get out there and be willing to make the sacrifices required. And opportunities are opening up all over the place. I was sharing with the team earlier on that many people are coming to me asking me for female board members and asking for specific skills like finance, technology, etc. Women have got to position themselves by acquiring the relevant skills to be able to fully maximize the opportunities that are opening up in recent time for us.
So in the case of Barclays, what's the situation right now that if I should work to engage your credit officers and I'm not a prime or maybe a very credit-worthy person, what am I likely to get from your end?
So from 34%, which we started last year with, you can actually borrow from us at around 26 to 27%.
And so one would ask that, how do you expect this development also to impact on the bottom line? Because there are some who have said that low interest rates sometimes translate into more credit extension and then significant growth in your loan book.
Definitely, if we don't ensure that this opportunity translates into higher volume.
And back here in the studio, my name is Martha Krensalakwa. We started with some stories on the Unibank ADB alleged takeover, and Unibank has denied working to take over ADB without the necessary approvals. This follows report it has acquired ADB after a consortium of shareholders led by Belstar pledged to give out their shares to Unibank. George Riafi is here in the studio with me, and he's been following the story, so he's here with an update. What have you gathered so far?
So from the statement that Unibank issued, they first sought to give a chronology of events that led to that news that these other shareholders in ADB have pledged to give out their shares to them. So they also try to explain to us that basically it was the fact that Belstar had pledged to invest some significant amount of money in the bank. Now, because Belstar was having some problems, they looked at another way of trying to help the bank recapitalize. And that is why they said if they cannot raise the money now, then why don't they actually give out those shares that they have in ADB to Unibank to help them recapitalize. Again, if you go through that statement, Unibank itself concedes or says that they haven't said that they have taken over the bank. It was just a matter of these other shareholders pledging to give their shares to them, and that doesn't warrant a takeover or owning ADB.
Okay, so we know ADB is not distressed. Can you confirm that?
Well, as far as you're concerned, I think they are in a good position. That's for Agricultural Development Bank. Okay. We also know that Unibank is not in a bad position. They are good. But in banking, they always say that big is beautiful. And so if you can take on even another bank to help grow your assets, that's a perfect thing. Even big banks like Barclays Bank, as we speak right now, we understand they are working to take on another bank. So big is always beautiful in banking. Therefore, be big and attract more customers, depositors, and also being able to handle big transactions. Okay,
so the problem has been the procedure being used. But Ghana Stock Exchange has also been criticized for how it handled the whole matter in freezing of ADB. What have you got on that?
Depending on who you engage, there are some who have argued that what has happened doesn't warrant freezing of shares in terms of trading, because this is just news about someone saying that they intend to take over these shares. Because if you follow exactly the word now, Unibank, they haven't said that they've taken over the bank. It could be as a result of several reportage on these issues. Okay. So if the bank is saying that X amount of shareholders have pledged to give their shares to them, that should not lead to the regulator taking this action. When you engage others at the other side, they also argue that, listen, ADB could be suffering as a result of this news, because what if some of these people don't like Unibank and therefore they want to get out of ADB, and that could see their share price drop significantly. So depending on who you engage, some are for, some are against.
Okay, so depending on who you engage, but how about financial regulators? Have we heard anything from them?
Well, we understand that they are still doing the necessary due diligence, and after that they'll take a decision on it. But depending on who you again engage, they're kind of peeved by...
Even the regulators?
Yeah, if you can talk about the Bank of Ghana and the Securities and Exchange Commission, and some of them are quite peeved about what has happened so far, and they might want to do certain things, to send certain signals to other players out there that don't go this way, otherwise it will come hard at you. So it looks like that action can be taken very soon after they conclude their investigations on what led to this and whether the right procedures was followed or were followed in terms of these announcements and what is being done.
Okay, so we're expecting this story to develop, and then we get a full conclusion.
You know, remember the Cowbank saga. This one you talk about the Unibank ADB saga.
And I know there will always be a political twist to business stories, and we'll follow it through and then bring...
So happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, George. Thank you. I'm grateful. So you are still watching Marketplace on Joy News. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more. This is the Marketplace on Joy News. Now, this month of March on the Joy News, on Joy Business Van, we'll begin a new series putting the spotlight on business of art. Versatile fine artist Mohammed Awudu kickstarts our series. For him, art is not only lucrative, but an opportunity to project Ghana in a very positive light. Here is a repeat of that story.
It's a few days to Ghana's Independence Day celebration, and somewhere at Jamestown in Accra, Mohammed Awudu, a versatile fine artist, is busy at work. He's been contracted by beverage company Guinness Ghana to do one of the things he loves the most, street art. Today, he's telling Ghana's independence story from his perspective and what he wants to see of the country in future. This is what Mohammed, who works under the signature name Mo, does for a living. Mo was born and raised in the Zongo community of Nima. He discovered his artistic skills very early and he pursued it.
I was very young, around the age of 9, 9 or 10 years back in primary school. So after my junior high, I enrolled to an arts college. So I started discovering that I can make money from arts. So from there, I used to do paintings, take them to art center, sometimes at exhibition. That's what I used to pay my fees and all that. So from there, I think I've been doing art every day.
But as Mo progressed, being an artist became more than a money-making venture, but an opportunity to rebrand and affect his community. He called it Reimagine Nima.
I try to put the different cultures that we have in Nima so that people outside will have a better perception about us rather than hearing it from other people. So from there, I think last year I had more than 50 or 100 tourists from all over the world, and now people are free to come to Nima.
More street art in his community is what would shoot up his career. More people started noticing it, and not too long, he would be exhibiting his graffitis at one of Ghana's popular art festivals, Chaluote.
Every year at Chaluote, my work, I think, stands out. When you go around town, when you come like around Jamestown, Nima, when you go to Su, all these places, when you go there, you find my works, and people call me and say, thank you, Mo, for giving us part of you. So I feel like, and I make a lot of I get a lot of contracts to these days that I do for people, and I feel like so proud.
Mo has become one of the most sought after artists by.
So this wraps up the International Women's Day edition of the Marketplace. I wish all women, from the market to the boardrooms, happy International Women's Day. My name is Martha Krensolakwa. Good afternoon.